Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode where the founders of Synapsewerx chew the fat over what's hot and what's not. This week we're going to talk about the massive announcement that is come out of the Salesforce camp this week, where Salesforce has agreed to buy Informatica for a whopping $8 billion US. And this is off the back of a seemingly failed bid to buy Informatica last year. I think they've got a pretty good deal. From memory, they were going with $38 per share last year. Just 12 months on, it's $25 per share. So I think it represents amazing value. What we're going to explore today is why has it made this acquisition, what this means for the industry as a whole, what it means for the customers of both Salesforce and Informatica. And if we've got time, we might also just look at what this means for Salesforce's competitors and the remaining iPaaS platforms that are left in the marketplace. I think we should watch those with interest. As I say, I think just a bit of context for today's conversation. Salesforce, this is probably its largest acquisition since 2021 when they purchased, I think it was Slack for about 27.7 billion. I mean, as I say that number, it just sounds pretty absurd. It's a huge unimaginable sum for me. Salesforce, as I just mentioned, has agreed to buy Informatica for $8 billion. And that's probably in addition to any shares that allegedly it might have owned off the back of last year's failed attempt. The primary objective articulated by Salesforce is to fortify its data foundation, which it deems essential for the responsible and effective deployment of powerful agentic AI solutions. And that's a partial quote of Mark Benioff from last week. And look, we all know and should be sensitive to the fact that in 2018, I think it was March 2018, Salesforce previously purchased another iPaaS platform, which was MuleSoft. And that was from memory about $6.5 billion US. So quite a significant acquisition, and we'll cover off the MuleSoft angle too in relation to Informatica and Salesforce. So hey, Carlos, look, this is a significant acquisition by Salesforce. Why do you think they've invested so much in Informatica, and what do you think the business strategy is here?
Yeah, sorry, Richard, go on.
Oh, Carlos, I was just going to ask, what were your views, being ex-Muley and, obviously pretty acquainted with the platform, about the future of MuleSoft now that, Informatica, there's a lot of overlapping capability between those two platforms. What do you think it's going to mean for Mule?
There is overlapping capability, but also there are a lot of areas of differentiation. And that's where I'm betting it is going to happen. MuleSoft has always been a platform for APIs, and APIs tend to be transactional, moving transactional data from one place to another. Informatica, on the other hand, they also have capabilities to integrate systems for sure, right? But most of the capabilities that are not overlapping with MuleSoft have to do with batch processing, with data cleansing and master data management. A lot of those areas really are not in the DNA of MuleSoft, and they have never been, and they don't have to be necessarily. If we combine those capabilities, that gives Salesforce a lot of potential. They gave them the ability to do a lot of data ingestion into the Salesforce data platform, ability to curate a lot of that data, but also through MuleSoft having ability to ingest data that is a bit more fast data, data that is flowing in the operational state of a business, and use all types of data in order to increase their AI capability. So that's what I'm hoping. If they take this opportunity, if Salesforce takes this opportunity to fully integrate the two capabilities that now they will have, assuming that obviously this acquisition goes ahead, then they will have a lot of strengths to bring all aspects of business valuable data to train models, to react, to use existing models to react on events in near real time, in order to make very accurate decisions and actions. That's what I'm hoping it will happen. And again, all those overlapping areas, well, one way or another should be considerations for each implementation, but it's more the complementary capabilities that I'm interested to see in the coming months and years.
And just as we're in this thread, what do you think they're going to merge the capability of the two platforms into one, or do you think it'll continue to be a bit like MuleSoft at the moment? I'm going to call it a complementary product. It sits alongside Salesforce. Do you think that'll still be the case with Informatica, or do you think it'll get embedded within platform?
It could be either way. My view is that Salesforce don't really tend to spend a lot of time, especially they don't have time this time. But they don't tend to spend a lot of time integrating acquisitions into their platform. They do to some extent, but they buy and most of their acquisitions they have made in the past is about areas of differentiation, and they tend not to touch those areas so much, and they just tend to keep them the way they are, which is probably not a bad thing. But at the same time, not having a very thorough integration makes it harder to use in orchestration, right, with everything else. I suspect, given they don't have the time and they really need to start running in this AI race, I suspect what we are going to see is that Informatica will come, again, assuming the acquisition goes ahead. Those capabilities will start being consumed just with a Salesforce logo, and then it's going to be Informatica by Salesforce or something like that. The same way as MuleSoft. Salesforce has not really done too much touching the MuleSoft brand, and it's still quite an independent platform if you think about it. Even though it is integrated within Salesforce, but it still operates as a separate unit. I think the same will happen.
Teams. Interesting, and without getting too political or emotional about it, I guess, given our histories, but. One of the big questions for customers now is going to be, what do I buy from Salesforce for integration? Do I buy this iPaaS platform, MuleSoft, or do I buy this iPaaS platform, Informatica? And Informatica is still there in that iPaaS platform, albeit it probably has a different focus from a data perspective. It's still really good in terms of connectivity and that more traditional platform integration as a service kind of platform capability, moving data from transportation of data, manipulation of data, and orchestration of data. So doesn't it just complicate it for customers out there?
And we have customers, who are using Informatica for their application integration needs.
Yes,
and that is already in place, and I think it will continue being in place. The way I see it, if something is not broken, well, why to try to fix it? That's been my line for a long time. For those organizations who have already adopted Informatica and they're happy with the level of integration, then probably it is good for them, because then they are going to potentially gain abilities to grow into the agentic AI space more quickly, because a lot of the capabilities that they have could potentially grow with the bigger Salesforce platform. For those organizations who have invested heavily in MuleSoft, again, I don't think they should really worry too much about. My view is that MuleSoft will continue being MuleSoft. It's a huge market share. I don't see how that can shrink anytime soon. They still keep at least getting the lights on and ensuring that they still maintain momentum. And there is so much capability in that platform as well. In those new situations where you have to choose, then I think it is a matter of being agnostic and deciding whatever is the best fit for the challenge, and also knowing what is the end goal of the organization. If the end goal of the organization, there is a lot of a strong alignment into an AI and agentic workflow, then maybe and they're already, let's say, a big Salesforce consumers, then maybe it has to be that whatever new solution has to be established in the way that they are going to use the best bits and pieces from Informatica and MuleSoft and Salesforce in order to get to that destination rapidly.
Hey, look, I think I now understand better why Salesforce are acquiring Informatica. I get that whole kind of master data management, that kind of MDM, data quality. And I think, Benioff has talked about in some of the press releases about the importance of quality of data and what that means for reliable agents and responses from agents. So I kind of understand that. It makes a lot of sense. I guess what I want to understand isn't Informatica traditionally a lot more batch, a lot of ETL, and I just wonder, from your point of view, Carlos, how does that fit in for real-time data and real-time, so agents acting in real time as part of a real-time workflow?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I agree. Informatica is pretty strong when it comes to batch integration, batch data processing, and master data management, which is a lot of data curation, data quality, and rules to establish a lot of synchronization. That is not real time. That is not even near real time. MuleSoft, on the other hand, my personal opinion, I don't consider them also real time, and it all depends on what academic definition you come with real time. If you come with the academic definition of blink of an eye, which is 400 milliseconds, which is what a human eye takes to blink, then again, it is probably in those type of real time situations you need a little bit of stream and stream processing, and again there are a lot of complementary technologies that can operate in this space, such as Confluent, Kafka, for example, right?
Yeah.
However, information exists, like very valuable information will come and will be located within applications, and you cannot ring fence all of that information. And we have learned in the last 18 months that it is a bad idea to pull information from ERPs, CRMs, and other systems of records and push all of that data into a lakehouse. That is not a good idea. We have learned that is a big mistake, actually.
Certainly not for operational data.
Not for operational data at all. But that data is valuable, and when we are talking agentic has to be all about making decisions based on data that is happening, occurring in near real time, and then making decisions on top of that data. So MuleSoft is super important. Organizations that are currently using MuleSoft will need to keep using that ability to quickly connect with those backend systems to pull that data through APIs. And we might not be talking a blink of an eye, but again, that is something that an agent would have to do in order to make the next best decision. If that was a human doing the same job, probably that human would take hours or days in order to make those decisions. So it's still valuable. But a lot of that data will also occur in batch processing, and the majority of the integration today in 2025 was talking everything about AI and the future and disruption, but the reality is that the majority of organizations are still operating in batch mode.
Yeah.
And MuleSoft has never really been good at handling batch processing. it is expensive and it is probably not scalable, not a good fit of technology for those challenges, right? Depends on the magnitudes we are talking about, but again, if we are talking about a lot of data had to be ingested into something else as a night job, then probably not a good fit. Informatica, on the other hand, they are actually good with batch data processing, and they will those capabilities will be required because that data needs to be transferred into a better place for to be consumed for the best decision out there.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and I think there's been a few other acquisitions across other platforms recently where they're taking on ETL and ELT type technologies to enhance their platforms. I think it's fair to say in general, most iPaaS platforms aren't necessarily great at real time, and I think this is where the value of solution really comes into play. Building it and looking at it from a solution perspective. I imagine both now and increasingly so in the future, that kind of human interaction, conversational human interaction, which is where Gen AI is really excelling in and reasoning, that requires real time. And as you say, Carlos, that's 300 to 400 milliseconds, kind of blink of an eye. Otherwise, it feels a bit fake and a bit false.
Yeah.
So
right.
So I can see that coming and being more and more of a requirement in the future.
Yeah, and also remember, MCP is gaining traction as we speak. It just came out of the blue, and it is being supported by probably most big cloud providers and major vendors out there. And MCP is all about providing agents with those skills and tools to be able to do a job well done.
Yeah.
And in most cases, that is easily done through APIs. So again, for iPaaS out there, as we have discussed in previous episodes of Synapsewerx, APIs are important. APIs are super important.
Yeah.
And for those organizations who have leveraged a lot of APIs through iPaaS, it's a good news because now they will be in a stronger position to adopt agentic for their own business automation and business gains. That is part of agentic. That is something that we are going to keep seeing more and more. And this phenomenon that we saw with Salesforce acquiring Informatica, you are right. I think we are going to see it more and more and more because basically there are certain capabilities that are required in order to achieve agentic, and those capabilities have to do with you need to grow your data platform presence. You need to have ability to ingest data. You need to have ability to transform batch data. You need to have ability to curate data. You need to have ability to build APIs and integrate to APIs. Which again, if you think about it, like other companies like ServiceNow, well, for sure they are in that race, in that AI race as well. They want to go into CRM at the same time that Salesforce want to go into ITSM. And it just becomes very clear that there is competition and they have to close gaps. And those gaps get closed through acquisition quite easily, especially if you have the money.
Look, you're spot on. Just hold that thought because I've got one other observation about the acquisition and Informatica and what we're seeing as a trend in the market. I think, for me, it seems like, there's this renewed focus in the industry on data quality. Makes complete sense. Everyone blows that trumpet. So having MDM type capability and the capability for golden records, we were talking about this and sharing this with customers a couple of years ago, actually, through our data integration reference architecture. Hey, Richard, do you think maybe we were slightly ahead of our time? Because, certainly we're seeing some big acquisitions now from, Salesforce. They've just spent $8 billion buying this very capability. And we've been talking about this with our customers for a while.
Yeah, look, I definitely think we were thinking about that, a few years ago as well, and pretty encouraged, I think, with some of that, the reference architecture that we'd built, and when we started playing that back out with enterprise architects and solution architects, through our ecosystem, you could see the new dawn emerging, on their faces, and then the investments that they're going to have to make in their learning journeys about what that is going to mean for their agencies and organizations that they work for, because I think there's a fundamental shift occurring, and then suddenly I think the whole world of AI sort of exploded, and that really catalyzed that thinking to become more at the forefront of the agendas, these very strong influences within those organizations, and they've got a very big role to play to affect the change that's going to be needed as these organizations adapt for a new tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what we've been talking about all this time is now really starting to come to fruition, and I think every enterprise architect really needs to be looking now introspectively at what they've built over the last 10 years, thinking about where they need to go in the next, I'm going to say 24 months to 5 years, because it's that kind of time frame really now. Things are happening so quickly. You've got to be in to win, as they say. So they should be looking at their reference architecture. They should be looking at their integration design patterns. They should be thinking about the platforms and the capability that they're going to need to be able to provide agentic within their organizations. And they should really be thinking about that now and having those discussions with their board, thinking about what funding and investments they're going to need to go through this intelligent transformation, building on top of digital transformation and taking them through to this next kind of generation. Yeah, look, good stuff. Hey, Carlos, so you touched on a lovely topic. I like the concept of the AI race. I think we are very much in a bit of an AI race, and I think it's just the beginning. I think they're just off the starter's block. So I think that race is going to intensify in coming months and years. You also mentioned ServiceNow, but probably not just ServiceNow. There's the likes of Microsoft too. How do you think they're going to react to this latest news? Again, you mentioned acquisition, and do you think we're going to see further data and iPaaS platforms on that acquisition target list?
Yeah, I think so. Especially those organizations who have very clear gaps, capability gaps in their platform, and not for any other reason than it was not necessarily their focus in previous years. An organization like ServiceNow, that they have been growing and been extremely successful in previous years. But did they think that they were going to be interested in a CRM business like a few years ago? Maybe not. Maybe they didn't think. Maybe they saw it at that time. I don't know. But it is clear right now that agentic provides this capability to organizations to improve a customer service. Anything to do with customer interaction, it is an opportunity to take it to the next level and differentiate. And if you're an IT vendor, well, you are in a premium position to help any organization to consume your technology so that they can improve their customer satisfaction, and they can reduce costs, and they can provide hyper personalizations to their end users. And that is probably the first phase that we are going to see with agentic, and that's because agents through LLMs are fantastic technologies with capability that can bridge this human interaction. They can understand very well what a human is trying to say, even though it is not said completely. We have seen evidence that in a lot of times they even understand the intent better than another human, which is fascinating, seeing a machine understanding what a person means before another person understanding what they mean. And with all of this capability, we are going to start seeing how there is a need to close the gaps around, okay, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, we thought that RAG was going to be the answer to every single problem. And don't get me wrong, RAG is good, but it is not the answer to every single problem. MCP probably is not going to be the answer to every single problem, but these are adding dimensions of capability that are helping solve the problem, which is like we are trying to mimic, if you like, the human interaction, the human service from a human to another human. It's just that in this case, it is going to be an AI agent to a human. And we are trying to close gaps in terms of what an agent needs to do in order to provide that very elevated, a valuable service. And in a lot of that, accuracy obviously is important. The data needs to be highly curated. And that's the reason why organizations need a way to increase the quality of data, to ring fence the right data and to pull data, to ingest data from different sources. The CRM is really not the majority of the data in an organization. It is super important. It is called customer data, but there are other areas of the organization that it is important. So obviously having a platform where you can pull other types of data and standardize that very valuable data outside customer data is important. And other organizations, probably they won't have an iPaaS. Like Salesforce, they don't have to worry about acquiring an iPaaS because they already did. They did in the past, and it was a very successful acquisition to MuleSoft. If you ask me, well, ServiceNow, they don't necessarily have an iPaaS within their platform. Do they need an iPaaS? Maybe. Are we going to see another acquisition? Maybe. There are a lot of super capable iPaaS out there that are leading the world right now, including Boomi, Workato, and obviously you mentioned also Microsoft. Microsoft have a lot of capability already in integration, so I don't see Microsoft acquiring an iPaaS company, but obviously they don't have it. They don't have everything, and they also need to start growing capability in different. Yeah, this is a very interesting diagram. This is the latest Gartner quadrant for iPaaS 2025, and what do you have to say about that, Malcolm?
Gartner. I think there's lots of different views about Gartner, and the political importance of where you get positioned in which quadrant. So it gets quite topical, and I don't want to go into too much of that per se. But I think just in the context of this conversation, we can see Informatica, right? It's up there in that top right quadrant. That's now been acquired. It's acquired by Salesforce. It's $8 billion that they've paid for it. And I think that was in addition to shares that they'd already purchased in their failed attempt in 2024. So maybe they've spent a little bit more. But anyway, either way, I guess the question for me, we're talking about ServiceNow and Microsoft. Microsoft's got some capability there, but out of all of those that we see there in front of us, which ones really have this kind of MDM and that kind of data capability? Because I think that's pretty rare in integration platforms, and I think if that's the new kind of gold, which platforms should we perhaps keep an eye on here from an acquisition point of view?
That's a very loaded question, Malcolm. I don't know exactly what you mean with that, but historically we know that Boomi are having very interested in Data Hub, and Data Hub has been growing and shrinking over the last few years. They knew that the way they understood integration was, for example, different to how MuleSoft understood integration. It's the same challenge, it's moving data from one application to another. But these two organizations saw it from different angles. And those angles are actually very important. And right now, in an agentic AI race, these angles are premium, and they provide a lot of capability. Boomi, well, let's say MuleSoft from one end, they bet 100% on APIs. And I think they were right, because APIs do provide business speed and agility. And they provide a way in which they can break down and create the business composable phenomenon that ultimately allows to create new products and services quite rapidly. On the other hand, Boomi thought about it in a different way. They thought that, okay, it is not necessarily about APIs. It is about integration, the data. And they saw the value of the data from the very beginning. And they thought about integration in a different way. They thought about, okay, data needs to be synchronized. Data needs to be cleansed. Data needs to be improved in terms of quality. And all of these are business rules that ultimately need to happen. And if you follow them correctly, you are going to have very, very highly valuable data. Let's call them golden records. And these golden records will simplify the consumption of this valuable data to pretty much any other system. And that's basically what, in a definition, that's what Data Hub is all about. And it is very valuable right now. I remember we were talking to Boomi probably 18 months ago about all of these things. And at that time, it wasn't clear whether, again, coming back to RAG, like whether RAG was going to disrupt these data hubs, and everything had to be pushed into a RAG framework. And we said, like, no, at that time we said, like, we don't believe so. We believe in ring fencing data. We believe in ingesting data. We believe in data synchronization. We believe in data curation and golden records. We believe in the medallion architecture that moves data from bronze, silver to gold. And once it is in gold, it is at the highest levels of value for an organization. And that's where you can do a lot about that. Now imagine if on top of that golden records, you have an agentic capability.
Yeah.
The sky is the limit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, look, well answered, Carlos. You're right, it was a loaded question. But my knowledge is probably a little bit less than yours at a technical level around some of these platforms. I think, certainly Boomi has a lot of the right ingredients, and as our kind of viewers and customers know, we track Boomi with extreme interest because of what they're doing around not just integration, clearly, but what they're doing around agentic and AI agents, and we've been a long-term fan of some of that core capability, which I believe helps differentiate them in the marketplace around that data hub capability. So I think the moral of the story is, though, we will watch this iPaaS kind of segment with interest. I think there is an AI race on, without a doubt. And I think all the big players are going to be looking at building out their capability. I think, though, what's clear to me right here, right now, even with all these acquisitions, at the end of the day, as architects and as enterprise architects, we still have important decisions to make. This is about selecting, especially right here, right now. It's about selecting the right applications that you're gonna, which horse are you gonna bet on. It's about ensuring that you're investing in and backing the right tooling and capability. Clearly there are choices now at an iPaaS level, whether we select a traditional iPaaS that's focused on connectivity and transportation and transformation of data, or building of API capability, versus something that has expanded capability that's really going to support an agentic vision. And then all the other low-level stuff about getting the right kind of models, having, considering real time. So I think the role of architect now really needs to be, it's always had to choose the right technologies, but I think it's increasingly important today just because of the rate of change that we're seeing around agentic. So, yeah.
Be good to see at this week's AWS conference too about, those themes playing out in their, public-facing narrative.
Yeah, look, I think AWS have had a, very strong story in this space for a long time now. I remember probably two and a half years ago popping along to the AWS Summit and seeing all of that capability coming through. And on top of that, they've got that good solid foundation of security and governance and data management. So it'll be interesting this week to see how that agenda is moving along for sure. And obviously not just AWS. Microsoft Azure are doing the same. You have other parties and players. Albeit perhaps with more of an analytics focus traditionally, but something like Databricks. They have this massive focus for the last couple of years on that whole AI pipeline, the whole data pipeline, quality of data, MDM golden records, and catalogs that help support all of that. So huge amount of capability in the marketplace, but you've got to choose the right one for your organization in the context of your business use cases and your organization and your business strategy. And I think that's going to be the key skill, right?
I think so, yeah. And for organizations listening to this episode, they also need to make sure that, as you said, to understand the spectrum of possibilities, because there are very, very worthy contenders in that view that you just mentioned before. Like even just from an iPaaS point of view, let's not lose focus on other companies like Workato. Workato are still, they are probably top one in the race right now, from an iPaaS point of view. And another competitor there that I see that we need to be very, very careful to follow is Oracle. And the reason why I say Oracle is because, to me, an AI platform or an AI vendor is not the one that gives you the best bells and whistles around tooling on AI. But as we said, an AI partner is the vendor that is going to be the closest to your data. And Oracle is pretty much everywhere. And everybody has Oracle databases, and a lot of super valuable information is with Oracle. And what this creates is having that ability to consume that data as quickly as possible to realize agentic automations, agentic workflows. And let's say, for example, that you want to create an agent that ultimately requires embeddings that come from your backend systems. One way to do it is, let's go with RAG. So we are going to be having a pipeline that ultimately is constantly embedding data from backend systems into a vector database. And then that way you can have access to those vectors in near real time. Another way to do it is potentially using Data Hub, in which you are going to be synchronizing that data into a golden record, and then you are going to have an MCP layer that ultimately is going to consume that data as part of an agentic workflow. Another potential way to do it is, well, as that information exists in your backend Oracle application, what if you just use a view on top of it that allows you to consume that same a relational information as a graph DB, or allows you to consume that information as a vector DB without necessarily having to move that data from that single spot. Again, 3 different ways to solve the same problem. None of them are right, none of them are wrong. It is just considerations that you need to have. And different vendors will come with different capabilities and different ways of providing these very highly valuable outcomes for organizations.
Hey, look, and this is a joy of being agnostic here at Synapsewerx, right? We can go in and we can advise our customers in the context of the technology that they've invested in over all those years. There are so many Oracle customers who have invested heavily in that capability, and they've got masses of data in their Oracle database. And as you say, Carlos, Oracle have been pretty smart and pretty clever in terms of extending out views around vectorization, around JSON for unstructured documents, and being able to create those views and use those on the fly as part of a wider solution really unlocks that data that's been going into Oracle database for many customers for many years. So it's about leveraging that data and that capability that you've got as an organization. That, as we've talked about many times, proprietary data is kind of key for agentic going forwards. That's going to be the real differentiator.
You just mentioned one thing that is very important, Malcolm.
Yeah.
And sorry that I interrupted, but
That's
I
right.
got very excited with what you just mentioned because it made me realize something that is very important to ensure that we disclose here, and that is the same way how we are seeing there is a war. There is a race right now, an AI race between or among AI IT vendors. There is a race also among organizations, pretty much any business on the planet, and they don't know it yet. Many of them do. Many of them do know that they have to do something to be competitive in 12 months and 24 months. Some of them we are actually helping to realize that you have to do something or you are going to be extinct within 2 years. But there are still a lot of organizations that they don't know that. And they should know that the race is not just for IT vendors. The race is for each one of them, each one of us, because we are all in the same race.
Spot on, Carlos. You look at it from the balcony. Technology vendors, and we're focused on that in today's conversation. Absolutely big AI race. I think you take it down to the next level, though. Organizations, as you've just rightfully pointed out, they've always been competing with each other, but I think it's going to be a bit of a survival of the fittest. Those organizations that exist today that are used to their existing business models really do need to be thinking about how they can leverage agentic and within their organizations to help differentiate their business and support their customers. I personally believe, as a user, personal user as well as a work user of AI, that I'm going to be expecting AI in solutions. In 3 years' time, I expect to visit my GP and I expect her to be having an AI agent helping her diagnose. Right. Same with the lawyer or with my accountant. And so I think organizations have to be thinking this way. I think the other big risk for organizations at the moment, from an extinction kind of level event, if we term it in that sense, it's the business models that haven't yet been invented yet that are going to be run, with an AI first policy. Just remember those good old fashioned days where we went from on-prem and then it was born in the cloud, and MuleSoft did amazingly well off the back of their re-architecting for a cloud solution born in the cloud, and many other organizations too. But I think it's those other kind of business models that we've probably not quite thought of yet that could also come swinging in. So definitely competition at that level, and I think the race is on in that sense too. Also at a personal level, I think if you're not using AI, if you work in IT and you're not using AI on a day-to-day basis, then you're probably doing something wrong. You probably need to rethink it. As an organization, we're heavily invested in AI. We have our teams working on AI solutions all the time. If we get bench time, they're working on AI solutions. We're building out solutions and use cases. Our teams are skilling up in AI. Carlos, you're at MIT at the moment doing a course at kind of grad level around AI, and I think we all need to be skilling up in this sense in order to be relevant for the future. So. Yeah, interesting times for sure. The AI race is here. And I think we all need to compete in that race.
We have to. There's no other option.
Yeah. Cool. Any final comments, guys?
No, we've covered off quite a lot today.
We have.
Revisited some past topics and looking ahead and looking at all those trends that are occurring today. It's just phenomenal about the rate of change and the pace of things that are coming.
Yeah.
And we're right in the eye of the storm, which is a good feeling for us.
Well, look, I think it is a pivotal moment, what Salesforce have just done. I think it kickstarts a new race, I think. So, look, guys, as always, thank you very much for your thoughts and your insights on today's topic. I, for one, will watch with interest to see what Salesforce does with its new toy. I'll also keep one eye on the competition, as I wouldn't be surprised to see ServiceNow accelerate its iPaaS acquisition plans that it may or may not have already. And look, before we finish this session, I'd just like to thank you all out there for spending this time with us today. If you've liked what you have seen, then please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe below. If you've got any questions based on today's chat, then just, again, drop those questions in the comments below, and we'll do our best to respond. So thanks again, and until next time, keep having fun with meaningful technology. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.